It's crazy. So anyhow, we'll talk about that a little later as our good friend Chip Pickering from INCOMPAS, the CEO of INCOMPAS. He has just joined us here in the studio. Welcome, Chip.
Hey, Gerard. How are you?
I'm doing great. So glad to have you here today. A little rain going on outside, and it looks like, Rhino, it's going to get worse for the state of Mississippi with respect to Hurricane Beta.
Yeah, the western portions of the state, specifically the Mississippi Delta, are looking at 3 to 5 inches of rain with localized flash flooding.
It's 2020, right? It's just par for the course. All that stuff's going on. All right, so Chip, tell us a little bit about our listeners about your organization, your advocacy at INCOMPAS there to start things off, and then we'll dig into some of the battles going on in our country and the world of technology, and in particular in telecommunications.
Sure. So INCOMPAS started almost 40 years ago, 39 years ago in 1981. And if you think back to that time, they were advocating for competition and telecommunication laws, trying to break up the old telephone monopoly, Ma Bell, AT&T. And so they've always been the voice, first of competition in long distance, and then in 1996, competition for the local markets and across all platforms and technologies, wired, wireless, cable, broadcast, internet. And so they really have been the founding voice of competition and continue to be the voice for the new innovation technologies, business models. And it now includes all of the leading infrastructure companies, broadband, fiber, as well as leading internet companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Netflix. So we're distinct in that we represent both the content side of the internet economy and the infrastructure side of the internet economy.
Speaking of conflating, those two have been converging for quite some time, and I think it's just natural when you look at AT&T's purchase, for example, of DirecTV. It was an example.
And then CNN and Time Warner.
Right, exactly. Yes. So the convergence of content with delivery and infrastructure. You knew this was coming. You've seen it coming. You know, the interesting thing, just as an aside, being a systems integrator, which was the business I was in for so many years, many of these carriers, they were customers, they were vendors, and they were competitors, sometimes on the same deal.
Very much so. So it is. We have a lot to be proud of our tech and infrastructure. We lead the world in the internet economy. We have 14 of the largest 20 worldwide companies, and it really has led to an explosion of innovations and things that we could never imagine. And in the crisis of COVID and the pandemic, the tech and broadband companies have really performed and kept America connected, up and running commercially, education, healthcare. And so it's something that we can all be proud of.
Yeah, it's a great point because just imagine our life the last 6 months without those tools. Without that infrastructure, without that technology, the impact that would have had on our economy, which is we've already seen a significant deleterious impact. I can't imagine it without those tools and technologies.
That's right. And so, as you look at Mississippi, we have with C Spire and other companies, we have a very rich history and heritage. Not only your company and what you did to build a software and integrated systems platform that as an entrepreneur that did very, very well. But we're the birthplace of Comcast, Worldcom, SkyTel, many other entrepreneurial, the Billy Mungers and the Wirt Yergers that have built up wireless companies, and not only here at Mississippi but across the region. So we do have a very, very deep, rich history in being a telecom tech innovative hub for the region.
It's a great point, and it's not known. I can tell you in my numerous visits pitching Wall Street investors, sometimes when we go out to my data center, we would pass by the old Worldcom headquarters, and the question is, well, what's that? And when you tell them, they say, well, I didn't know Worldcom was founded and based in Mississippi. They all know Worldcom. It's a household name, I guess, in the industry, but they don't put the two and two together often. We don't get credit, do we, for what we do here in Mississippi?
No, we really don't. And as I represent the internet companies and the economy that they enable, UUNet was an acquisition by WorldCom. WorldCom had the largest internet backbone in the world at the time. headquartered here in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah, they were, frankly, ahead of the game.
Very much so.
In planning fiber and just building out a digital infrastructure to deliver not only voice but data as well.
They really changed the world in which we live and the economy as we know it.
They pulled all the others.
They really did.
They
led the way. And
it's competition.
And I like to say that we're the birthplace of the blues, but also the birthplace of texting. So SkyTel, really, you look at their technology, was two-way paging, which is what we know as texting today.
I have to brag a little bit. One of our customers, we were integrally involved in building out a lot of the back-end infrastructure. You also remember Suncom, which was
very much so.
Started by Billy Munger and then ultimately acquired by AT&T. That was a good day for all those who took the risk in that deal, but we were integrally involved in building out those networks as well for those guys. So it's a great point. I'm glad. I had forgotten a lot of that stuff in the past, but you're so right. Mississippi does have a rich history in the industry, and it's not known and it's not understood.
Very much. And Comcast started in Tupelo, Mississippi, so we have the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, and then Comcast, and then they went to Meridian, Laurel, Mississippi, my hometown.
Yeah.
My dad was the first attorney for Comcast.
I'll be darned.
Back in the early 1960s.
A gigantic telecom provider, and like all these other guys, fingers in a lot of different pies, which is good. So tell us about your advocacy there. It seems like we're always fighting the government in this respect, and there's this fear the government has is we can't let these guys, operate in a free market. Oh my gosh, they can't do that.
Well, as we enter into a new age of competition and rivalry with China on strategic, on national security, on economic grounds, we have a lot of people in Washington who are wanting to now either break up or heavily regulate the internet companies just at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And in the wrong way. As you look at every measurement of consumer welfare, lower prices, more innovation, greater investment across all parts of the economy, whether it's healthcare, education, or in tech and economy, our companies are creating greater growth, lower prices, better services, and that's a hallmark of a competitive market, not a concentrated monopolistic market.
Absolutely. We're up against a break. Can you hang with us, talk some more?
I can.
Stay with us. We got Chip Pickering, the CEO of INCOMPAS. We'll talk some more about the wild world of technology here on the JT Show so far. Gotcha. Our guest in the studio is Chip Pickering, the CEO of INCOMPAS. They're a telecom and technology services advocacy group. And so, Chip, during the break, we were talking about how fortunate we are in Mississippi to have so many great companies, such as C Spire, which is headquartered here, and they're naturally going to take care of their local area with respect to infrastructure build-out. They've been very aggressive in that regard, and we're really, to some extent, ahead of the game versus the other states in getting to the magical 5G deployment. And this could really change our economy for the better.
It really can, and if I could stress anything to our public and private leaders, we have a chance as a state to win the race to the infrastructure of the future, the digital infrastructure, the 5G infrastructure. And what does that mean? It's rich fiber deployment, and then you have your wireless overlay on that. And why is that important? So if you look at autonomous vehicles for Nissan and Toyota, if you look at UMC and telemedicine and telehealth for the rest of the state, if you look at the best ability to educate across the board from K through 12 to higher education and community colleges, that infrastructure will allow us to lead the region in the advanced applications, whether it's advanced robotics or artificial intelligence or quantum computing, whoever has the best infrastructure. And that is the same in the case of the United States versus China. We're in a big national, international race against China to have the best infrastructure in the world. And if we don't win that, we don't win the applications that ride on top of that.
Right.
And then the data centers and the digital, which is another very critical component of the infrastructure that you're very well versed. We have a chance because we're in the midpoint between two major data center hubs, Atlanta, Georgia, and Dallas, Texas.
Yep.
And then from New Orleans to Chicago is another major hub. So if we could have the corridors for autonomous vehicles, the corridors for data centers along I-20 and I-55, we are at the crossroads again of a critical new phase of our economy. And if we're smart, strategic, and fast, instead of being last in the region, we can be first in the region. And we have every opportunity. We're leading the region as far as how much fiber we have in the ground of any state in the region.
Yep.
And most people don't know that.
Yeah, and so for the benefit of our listeners, I think a lot of people think about 5G meaning, well, maybe I get better voice reception on my mobile phone or my apps are a little faster. I think what's not understood is you have to think of these things in terms of tools that haven't even been invented, haven't even been conceived yet. And the reason they haven't been is because they're limited. They cannot function on a 4G network. Yes. When you look at 5G being 100 times faster than 4G, and you also got to consider the density, the number of devices that can be connected. And as we just continue to plow forward, connecting more devices to the internet, the world of IoT, yes, such as robotics, yes, for example, that all have to communicate via the internet with some applications in the cloud. You think about a factory, not just the phones that people are carrying around in there, but everything you look at and touch is connected. And that requires more dense bandwidth. And this is where 5G helps us win that race, frankly. It's more than just speed. And autonomous vehicles are not possible without eliminating the latency of 4G by replacing it with 5G, for example.
That is correct.
Telehealth.
Telehealth, precision agriculture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So imagine Mississippi if we're the leader in telemedicine, precision agriculture, autonomous vehicles, our supercomputers that we have at Ole Miss State, at the Corps of Engineers in Vicksburg, down at Stennis. Then the quantum computing, the artificial intelligence, the ability to really lead because our network is best.
Yep.
Of all the other southeastern states, we have, because of home headquartered companies like C Spire and the great history of building up our research institutions, we can lead the region, and that is a doable vision. If you have the right leadership and the right strategy, and you have a coordinated effort by both private and public leadership to achieve that end vision. So I think we have the right team of leaders in Mississippi today. We have the right companies. And if we work together and lay out a vision and then execute it, I think we have a chance to win the next or to win the future economy and the research and the education workforce that is best represented. And we're already seeing companies like Amazon and Google locate in Mississippi. Yep. You serve, I know, on the Economic Development Authority in Madison County. We have some good news. I hope it will be coming soon, of Amazon making a major investment there. We have Google up in North Mississippi. That's just the only operation center they have in North America is in North Mississippi. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. And they're announcing, is Google, the build-out of more data centers. Maybe we can get fortunate and land one of those. I read a report this morning that even though we've got this massive transformation to cloud as a consumption model, still private companies, 57% of them, in a report I read in CIO publication this morning, intend to either expand or build new data centers. Yes. So the private data center is still alive, and I can tell you from my company's perspective, we sold and installed lots of infrastructure in private company data centers. So it's a great hybrid world, and we always felt like it would be that, where you've got applications consumed from public cloud and you've got applications delivered from private cloud. That's still alive and well, but the bottom line is it is essential to have high-speed, reliable, secure, cost-effective underlying transport networks, which is what your organization represents, to make all that a reality. It's just essential. And as we move into this new economy, it will all be network-driven, network-dependent, network-connected. Yeah. So not only do you need to have a new national commitment, a consensus to have connectivity to every person, every home, every business, but it's a network that will connect to every appliance, every machine, every car, everything that moves and works in the American economy. And that is people, I hope, can realize what a significant transformation this will be.
Yeah.
And that Mississippi has a chance to really be the leader of the region. And we have Senator Wicker, who's the chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee, who oversees the tech, the broadband infrastructure, NASA, the research institutions. So as we look at both a terrestrial deployment of networks, the broadband, the 5G, the fiber, we're now in a very transformational period in space where Amazon and SpaceX and others are deploying low Earth orbiting satellite that can also have internet connectivity that will also be significant for not only our country, our state, but for the rest of the world to provide connectivity.
I mean, it's twinkle in the eyes of a lot of inventors right now, and Musk is one of the most prolific on the planet, and he's moving full speed ahead with the deployment.
Very much so.
And so, again, that's just more routes to market, and that's what you guys seek, isn't it, to a great extent?
It is. And so if you have networks enable both not only the competition we seek, the choices, and the lower prices, the innovation, but then all the software coding and applications that ride on top of that, it has a multiplier effect that is exponentially greater than anything that you can imagine of the last 20 years. As we go into the next 20 years.
It spawns it, essentially. And when developers know they've got adequate infrastructure, both in terms of storage, compute power, and network transmission, they get really creative and can dream up stuff the rest of us just can't. And this is why I've said on the air here, Chip, you may or may not agree with me, I think the first trillionaire is walking in the United States. Might be in a stroller somewhere, but somebody's going to figure out something, leveraging all these tools and these technology, and they're going to become a trillionaire. And the left's going to go crazy, of course, when they hear that. We're all going to benefit from it immensely.
And I wanted to start here in Mississippi, just like Comcast and SkyTel and WorldCom and C Spire started here. We have the companies and the entrepreneurs and the innovators and inventors that should be right here at home.
I totally agree. It's been a great conversation this morning, Chip. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Chip Pickering, CEO of INCOMPAS, a former rep also of the Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District. We appreciate Chip coming in the studio. Take care, my friend.